emphasise and tribute to the Queen, who we haven't met since her passing, and also Councillor Nigel Shaw, who are with us. So I'll ask you a minute silence. I will just ask if anyone has or wants to say anything about Councillor Shaw. If not, I'll say a couple of words myself. Okay. I mean, Nigel first elected to Broadland, as many know, 2002. In fact, I claim responsibility for asking him to stand. And he's served admirably since then. His main interest while on the council was part of the airport consultative committee, and also he served a couple of terms, I think, as chairman of audit committee. I think he, of those who know him well, now he had a unique way of contributing at meetings, and certainly town council spokesman and Thorpe St Andrew, he served there for an equal amount of time, and also served on the county council. He was, I think, later, just before he passed away, he turned more of a recluse. And although I used to pick him up and take him to Spelston council meetings, he was gradually, I think his diabetes was having more impact on him than perhaps he chose to admit. But in all, I think he was a very good serving councillor. I think he was very keen on 20-mile-per-hour limits at schools, although he wasn't keen on the sleeping policeman that made it happen. But mainly because his car, the suspension, didn't like it. But so on that, I say he was sad that he actually passed away at such a what I regard a young age. Anyway, we'll move on. Can I have any declarations of interest, please? Sorry, I always forget you people just to my left. Fran.
Thank you, Chairman. I am here. Item 14, just to say the boundary affects the Wroxham division, which I'm the county councillor for. Thank you.
Thank you. And I need to do the fire notice because my vice chairman isn't here today, so unfortunately she has COVID. So to keep things proper, I'll just do the fire notice, then I'll come back to declaration of interest. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome. We're not expecting a fire drill today, so if the fire alarm sounds, we will evacuate the building. There are two fire exits from this room. One is through the double doors in which you came in, and the other door is to the right of the stage, which leads to the external fire escape. Please note that you should not use the lift in the event of a fire, and in the event of evacuation, we meet to the left of the driveway at the main entrance to Thorpe Lodge. Thank you. Okay, Councillor Holland.
Thank you. Yes, I'm the district councillor for Spixworth, so obviously that also affects my ward. Thank you.
Okay. Move on. Apologies for absence. Dawn.
Thank you, Chairman. Received the following apologies: Councillor Prutton, Councillor Copplestone, Councillor Crotch, Councillor Hartley, Councillor Harrison, Councillor Hempsall, Councillor King, Councillor Neeson, Councillor Roper, and Councillor J Thomas.
Do we have any others? Councillor Holland?
Yes, I'm afraid Councillor Britcher was taken ill today, so he's not able to be here either.
Thank you.
Any others? No. Okay, thank you. If we can confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 28th of July on page 17 of your agenda. Can we show of hands to approve those? Thank you. And do we have any matters arising from the minutes? Okay, thank you for those. To receive announcements from myself and my vice chairman. The list of our engagements are on page 20. I've got one to add to that on the 23rd of September. I joined various people. We're opening the Bure Valley footpath, which is funded by actually European money. And if people haven't used it yet, I can recommend it. It's a nice walk and a train journey back again. And just to mention a couple of things, on the 11th of September, I was actually very proud to pronounce the proclamation of the new king. It's probably one of the most important aspects I've ever covered in my 30 plus years of being a councillor. It was really making history, and I thank the staff and the councillors who joined me to do that for Broadland, and the Broadland MP joined us as well. And it was that whole weekend was an occasion which obviously won't be repeated. I'd like to thank the staff here for their contributions of the flowers, tidying the actual area outside within sort of 6 hours of realising what the announcement was, and the arranging for the Book of Condolence and the laying of the flowers. And just to mention, the 9th of October, the Marriage Way 10K, I do congratulate Councillors Thomas and Davis for taking part in that. I did it in my car, which was much, but it did mean that I could start them and also get to the finish before them. And weather-wise, it was. I think if I was running 10, it was a warm day for running 10K, so I take my hat off to them. So moving on, the vice chairman's not here. Leader, any announcements?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Sorry, just trying to get the paper to come up. Yeah, so I'd just like to inform Council of a couple of things and give a few updates. So the first one of those is covering county deals. So we've sort of moved on from where we were, as in we now have a new government in place and a new set of ministers. The Department for Levelling Up Minister, Secretary of State Simon Clarke, has confirmed that the current policy of county deals is to progress, and that Norfolk County Council remains as one of the front runners to conclude a deal. So discussions have been ongoing between Norfolk County Council, and these focus around the text of the deal. We haven't seen that text, and as a result of that, all we can be guided by, and we're focused to be driven to be guided by, is the text that has been published and is in the public domain for the North Yorks and York deal, which gives us an indication of the nature of the text. So the Yorkshire one seems to be very much a policy document reflecting policy discussions rather than a deal in the sense of a formal contract. Yesterday, I, with other Norfolk leaders, met with the Minister to go through some of our concerns and some of our issues. And she actually has responded very quickly to those points that were made to her. And you have before you her letter in response that was received this afternoon. I'd just like to emphasize a few points that are in that letter as you go through. First one of those is in relation to the relocating of functions between tiers of local government. And as you will see there, it does state that this deal will not change that. So that's quite reassuring. Also, a further question we asked was around the reorganisation of local government by the back door. And again, the letter makes it very clear that government has no plans for a top-down reorganisation of local government. Another element just want to bring to your attention was the apology that the minister put in the letter relating to the engagement that the districts have had and the way in which she wishes to change that going forward. And as a result of that, one of the district leaders representing all the districts will now have view of the draft text. As with all of these things, the crucial element will be what's in the detail. So Carl Smith, as leader of Yarmouth and also as chair of the Norfolk leaders, will be our representative on that, and we'll go through that. I guess looking forward on the county deal is also then just looking at what's being emphasised is that actually this is a starting process. So it's really, the deal is just the next stage of the process and will therefore create further opportunities. And I think her summing up at the end is quite useful in that it picks up in relation to the important issues that we sought engagement over, but also recognises that the deal is about delivery for residents and businesses within the local authorities of Norfolk. So I think that's quite important to pick up all of those bits. Just wanted to run through a few more elements relating to what the process is with the county deal. So our expectation is that the draft text will be with the Secretary of State for consideration in the very near future. Now, that could be in a matter of weeks, it could be in a matter of week, could be a month or so, but again, it's somewhere in there. We don't know because unfortunately we're not privy to that detail at this point in time, but that's our expectation. What that will then lead to is wider approval within the Whitehall departments. Once that process has been successfully concluded, then Norfolk County Council will have provided to them effectively the text of the deal, which will confirm ultimately what the scope of the things that are in there. So, for example, the long-term investment fund and other investments in Norfolk that will flow as a result of that deal. So, assuming everything goes smoothly, the timing of any announcement of the deal will be in the hands of the government. So it's down to the government when they actually say that the deal can move forward. Norfolk County Council will have the ultimate final say, and it's expected that that will come in the form of a resolution to move towards a directly elected leader. And again, that is expected probably in about a year's time. They'll be in a position to change the constitution in that way. So that's really where we are with county deals. Again, as more progresses, I'll keep you informed, but that's an element relating to that. I also wanted to just pick up a second thing that sort of came out very recently with the changes within government, and again, just picking up, which was to do with the investment zones. And again, Simon Clark, as the Secretary of State at the Department of Levelling Up, has written out to all leaders and all chief execs of local authorities and has outlined his intention to invite expressions of interest, but only from upper tier local authorities for investment zones. So within Norfolk, that means that the Norfolk County Council would be able to submit, but only submit one expression of interest for an investment zone. But that investment zone could cover and is likely to cover several sites. The submission will be based on the assessment relating to the economic opportunity, the pace of delivery, and the wider strategic considerations as a result of that. Important element that is required within that, though, is that each of the local planning authorities, which effectively in Norfolk would be the districts, have to be in support of the investment zone as it relates to their area. So it's not something that will just be taken away from district control. So it is something that we will have a say in the way that it comes forward. Again, perhaps just to give you a bit of background around the what is an investment zone, and again, it's something that's still developing, but what it seems to relate to is having a range of what's being called planning light, regulation light, and perhaps tax-free zones, trying to establish that based on Treasury templates in the way in which they bring those things forward. Now, for me, the easiest way to relate that to something we know about and we've done because we are a place setter and a place leader would be our own LDO for the Food Enterprise Park, where we've set the planning requirements, and therefore there isn't a need to go through the planning process because it has the same requirements right across the LDO in the way that it's set. So I would expect a similar type of approach to the investment zones, in that the planning requirements are set out by each of the districts in their respective sites in their areas. The slight difference with the investment zones is there's also the element of there around tax breaks and additional tax or economic leverage as well that could come into that, but that's slightly different. But as I said, the concept is still evolving, and all I can do is just keep you informed as that moves forward. But timeline is moving forward very quickly. So where we are at the moment, so Norfolk County Council officers have produced a list of potential sites with each of the districts' help in so doing, and they'll form the basis of the expression of interest when that goes in effectively tomorrow. The sites themselves were evaluated over last weekend, and a list of possible sites have been considered by leaders, as in the district leaders, at a meeting yesterday. Unfortunately, I couldn't actually attend that, but on my behalf, the managing director was there, who represented us and enjoyed himself at that meeting. But effectively, what we have to endorse is the sites to be included, the strategic approach, and the outline governance model that relates to that. What I would say is that effectively this was the first time that we saw the list of sites and the grading for each, and that's the key thing about how they're prioritized and how they're graded. And again, the first cut of priorities was actually sent out to us at the beginning of this week. So we've been working hard and fast on this to try and pull it together. I guess the bottom line is that there is considerable speculation that an investment zone will be offered to Norfolk. So we need to make sure that it's appropriate and set up in the right way. And it will, as part of that, from a Broadland point of view, include Broadland sites within that. The way in which the proposals are further developed will carry on, and that's in the terms of how the sites would benefit from changes or relaxation in any regulation or tax incentives. The consideration around the development board, the planning authority's delegation or not of any formal approvals, We'll also need to look at how we staff that to enable that to accelerate. The overall governance for any Norfolk sites or more local delivery models, again, needs to be understood. And the big one is the financial implications, therefore, relating to those things. So those are the elements we need to cover within that. So all of the above that I've talked about requires formal approval, but currently we are only at the expression of interest stage or phase. So at this point, there are no wider considerations or questions for council to consider, but it's something that obviously will come back at some point. All I can do, as this is evolving, is to keep you informed as things change, as things move forward, as things firm up, and that I can say is what I will intend to do. I'll pause there, Chairman. I think I've spoken for long enough, and hand back to you.
Thank you. Okay. Members of the Cabinet, Councillor Mancini Boyle.
There he is, he's got us dangling on a string, and has only got halfway down there, and he hasn't actually said which areas are going to be extended as a matter of interest. I think the council's deserve to know which areas has been submitted on our behalf.
Councillor Beadle, you normally ask a question at this particular period. Technically, there are no questions to be asked, and you normally start it with a point of order, which I totally recognise as a way of doing it. I don't intend taking questions at this point. There's announcements from the leader, from myself, the Cabinet, and the head of paid service. What I can say is that on this particular issue, everything will come back to council for decision, if that helps your query.
No,
Well, I'm very sorry then, Councillor Beale. Councillor Mancini Boyle.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, just three things I'd like to mention. Just encourage members to keep an eye on your inbox from Dan Goodwin in the communities team. There are 2 grants available. There's a Keep It Going grants, which is some funds that are from the lottery Broadland District Council pot that can be applied for, and also the Warm Spaces grant. All the details are in the emails, so please talk to your towns and parishes and your residents about applying for those. And thirdly, I just wanted to say, after extensive and continuing work on the 23-24 budget, this administration intends to recommend to full council at budget setting that the 23-24 Broadland District Council portion of council tax is once again frozen. I hope this will be one less thing for our residents to worry about at this present time. Thank you.
Councillor Leggett.
Thank you, Chairman. I would just like to thank all staff from Broadland and from Veolia who have helped to ensure that there was a smooth rollout of the extended food waste collection across the district. I know it took a lot of organising. I'd also like to tell councillors, in case you've missed this, that we have made £95,000 available for interest-free green loans up to a maximum of £5,000 for those residents who are taking part in this year's Solar Together project. The full details are on the website. And also, Veolia, as part of their contract with us, have a sustainability fund for environmental actions across the district. This, again, is advertised on the website. Applications are open until the 4th of November. Therefore, perhaps you'll tell your community groups and residents, because it can go to groups or individuals, of its existence, and to see if they would like to apply. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Wymark.
Thank you, Chairman. Just following on the about grants, just a reminder to everyone that you've obviously got your members' grant. Councillor Mancini Boyle spoke about warm spaces. and you know, you could use that to help support your village hall, to buy a new urn or equipment or something to have groups there. So just a reminder there. But also, from Norfolk County Council have given Norfolk Community Foundation a lot of money, so they have grants up to £2,000. They call them hotspots, but effectively they're warm spaces. So your community could apply for a grant up to £600 from Broadland and up to £2,000 from Norfolk Community Foundation. I think it's particularly important. I mean, I think it's always been important. One of the things that many communities and individuals within those communities have been struggling with for many years is loneliness. And I do think that we could look to address that loneliness as part of this package within communities. So maybe it's something we should always have been doing. But going forward, I think it's a good thing for us to consider and help support our communities to achieve this. Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry. We'll stick to the rules. Okay, Councillor Emsell.
I would like to thank all staff that have worked on the Horizon project. It gives me great pleasure to say that we have now completed the purchase and we are looking forward to an exciting chapter in the council's history. I know that residents might have questions in light of recent press reports. So all councillors now have a fact sheet that will give them the information they need to share this excellent news with the residents and explain what a great project this is. As I said when we agreed to proceed with the purchase of this amazing building, this is a win for our residents, a win for the One Team, and a win for the environment. As always, we have been financially careful. We now have one office for the whole team, and we reduced the council's building for carbon footprint by over 80%. Our residents want us to do all we can to be a forward-thinking council. We will always lead the way, doing the best we can while ensuring that we look after every penny of taxpayers' money. Thank you.
Thank you. Head of Paid Service.
Chairman, thank you. Just one thing, just to follow on from Councillor Emsell, if that's okay, and that's to make councillors aware you might be bumping into your South Norfolk colleagues post the 4th of November to avoid running both buildings and the heating costs therein. We'll be having the final meeting of South Norfolk members on the 4th of November. Thereafter, we'll be sharing the facilities here whilst we prepare for move into the Horizon building. So if you see other members, then that's what's happening. Thanks, Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, questions from public. We have a question from Tina Johnson. She's not here tonight, but I will ask, as per the standing orders, I'll actually ask that question on her behalf. So I will read it out. ADEPT, a coalition of local government, environmental and research organisations, has produced a blueprint for accelerating climate action and a green recovery at the local level. That makes 5 priority recommendations, including climate resilience, renewable energy, electric vehicle charging, supporting of reskilling, retaining and research to accelerate the move to a net zero economy, upgrade of homes to ensure they're fit for the future, making it easy for people to walk, cycle and work remotely, and accelerating tree planting, green spaces and other green infrastructure. Will Broadland District Council join with many other councils and sign up to show support for this initiative? And if not, why? I'll ask Councillor Leggett to respond to that, and we will forward a written response to Tina Johnson.
Thank you, Tina Johnson, for your question. ADEPT is the Association of Directors of Environment, Economy, Planning and Transport. They represent directors of county, unitary and combined authorities, along with the directors of local enterprise partnerships, sub-national transport boards and corporate partners drawn from key service sectors throughout England. Broadland District Council does not fall into this group. ADEPT produced 5 priorities for the blueprint for accelerating climate action and a green recovery at local level. That document also sets out a number of actions that upper tier authorities and central government could take to accelerate the ability of local authorities to influence the transaction to a net zero economy. Regarding those 5 priority recommendations within the document, those which fall into our district council remit, we are doing. And as you can see from our refreshed environmental strategy, and are also reflected in our forthcoming environmental delivery plan. The draft versions of these documents are available on our website as an item for the discussion at our upcoming environmental development panel, which is next Thursday. Broadland District Council does actions. We don't make grand statements, we just do it. And that's what's happening. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item 7, public speaking. We have no public speaking. So we move to the Over and Scrutiny Committee to receive the minutes of the meetings of the 6th of September and the 20th of September. Councillor Noel, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to present the minutes of the meetings held on the 6th of September and the 20th of September for the Council.
Thank you. Councillor Kareem
I attended the meeting on the 6th of September, but I'm not listed on the those present. So could that be amended, please?
Yep, we'll do that. Okay. Do you want a shout out to this?
Okay.
That's fine. Okay. Oh, sorry, Councillor Holland.
Can I just make the point that neither set of those minutes, as I understand it, have actually gone through overview and scrutiny and been approved. So that should that not be recorded as well?
So I didn't hear that.
Neither of those sets of minutes have actually been back to overview and scrutiny. We went at the meeting of the 20th, we were told the minutes of the 6th weren't available. So they haven't actually been agreed by the committee.
Corrections will be made by the committee.
The corrections will be made by that committee when the minutes go back to that committee. Thank you. Okay, item 9. Cabinet to receive minutes of the meetings of the 20th of September. Which is on, is that correct? Yeah, sorry. Yeah, page 37. Sorry, that's the recommendation to Cabinet, isn't it?
On page 38.
On page 38, yeah.
Perhaps if I can help you out, Chairman.
Sorry. Yeah.
So I'd ask Council to receive the Cabinet minutes of the 20th of September, of which there's one item that requires Council consideration, which is item 9.1. And I'd ask the portfolio holder, Councillor Emsell, to put that to Council, please.
Minute number 40, using intelligence to achieve first-class customer service. As we move forward, our use of our data and our intelligence of our systems is going to work to help support customer service. We will see an improvement in the customer service on the phone system, where we have more data available to us, and also the data used by departments such as housing. We're already working on some really positive things there, and the dashboards and information that is available to staff is amazingly helpful, and that will obviously filter down to improve the service. We have the recommendations for Council from Cabinet. The agreement of funding to establish a business intelligence service as set out in section 4.7 of the report. That funding for 22-23 is drawn from the corporate contingency. That funding for business intelligence service is built into the base budget for 23-24. These are all positive steps to use our data better in the future.
Okay, do you have a seconder for that? Councillor Noel? we have no conversation, can we have a vote on that? It's recommendation to council. It is on page 38, as proposed by Councillor Emsall, seconded by Councillor Lovell.
2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, Chairman. 4.
And those against?
None against, Chairman.
And those abstentions?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 abstentions, Chairman.
Thank you. Moving on, item 10, Planning Committee.
Chairman,
Oh, sorry.
there are other items on the cabinet agenda, namely item 43, page 41, to delegate to Director of Resources in consultation with the leader of the council to award contracts for the fit out of the fire centre and other contacts. I'm sure it should say contracts, and that are over 100,000 pounds, as long as they are within overall budgets as outlined in section 2 of this report, the report to Cabinet. So, Chairman, this is yet another example whereby the members are abdicating responsibility away from themselves and making scrutiny that much more difficult by all members of the council. So I think this is again another example where the direction this council should not be going in.
Well, that is a cabinet decision, Councillor Beale. But I know,
I'm just voicing my opinion and commenting on the agenda.
and I know your opinion. Thank you. Okay, moving on to Planning Committee. Item 10, Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to move the planning decisions of the meetings held on 10th of August and 7th September. All applications were approved with the exception of the Raw Dinosaur Park, which was deferred for a site visit, and it was approved at the subsequent meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, item 11, Audit Committee, Councillor Nurden.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to present the minutes of the committee meeting on the 21st of July and the 22nd of September. Just a few things I'd like to bring to your attention. At the bottom of page 52, the committee resolved to approve the annual governance statement for 21-22, subject to the amendments outlined by the audit committee. I can then move on to page 57, where we're doing a bit of follow-up on those amendments, and we were advised that some of those amendments hadn't been made. So on page 57, just above minute number 8, the committee were advised that some of the changes had been missed in error, as the statement was signed off by the Managing Director and the Leader of the Council. The Assistant Director of Finance would investigate whether the remaining requested changes could be implemented. So we're hoping that we will have some progress made on correcting the annual governance statement. The second thing that I just wanted to bring to your attention was on page 59, where we just above minute number 15, is that we were going to request that internal audit seek more detailed responses from officers regarding the progress of outstanding internal audit recommendations. We found that the responses were out of date on occasions and not very detailed as to where they were. So that is something that internal audit will be following up for the committee. And then lastly, I would just like to mention that the external auditors, Ernst Young, have now completed the audit of the 2020-21 accounts, and we will be meeting on the 27th of October to receive the external auditors' report and hopefully sign off the accounts. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Newton. Okay. Licensing and Regulatory Committee, I did just see Councillor King sneak in at the back. Over to you, David.
Thank you very much. My apologies for being slightly late. Ironically, it was a taxi that didn't turn up on time. But I present to the council the non-exempt minutes of the meeting held on the 5th of September 2022, and I'd like to ask you to accept them and advise you that all matters are resolved.
Thank you. Okay. Standards Committee, Councillor Brennan.
Thank you, Chairman. Initially, I'll ask you to receive the minutes of the meeting on the 27th of September on page 63 of the papers. There is one item that needs consideration by the council, but just before I come to that, if I could just say that, yes, we met on 27th of September to consider adopting the LGA Member Code of Conduct. This code, as published at the moment, was considered a great improvement on our existing code, which has been in existence for something like 10 years and really deserves updating to suit modern standards. And it was agreed it should be consulted on in whole before Standards Committee recommends a final code to be adopted by Council. That consultation period is now taking place. It ends on the 16th of November. So if you've not already completed the survey yet, I urge you please to do so. So that brings us then to 13.1, minute number 6, civility in public life. Recommendation is at page 66, and it is to recommend Council to adopt a member protocol to include the measures set out in those minutes. Again, just a paragraph, if I may. So we consider the LGA's report into civility in public life, and committee is recommending that Council adopts a member protocol to include measures identified on page 68. The formal protocol will be presented to Council at the same time as the new Code of Conduct at a future meeting, possibly December, if not by January next year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. To the seconder, Councillor Leggett. Yes. Thank you. Can we take that to the vote if we have no comments? Those in favour?
So I think that's fairly, yeah, I'll count that as a majority decision.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, moving on. Item 15, report of the monitoring officer. Sorry. Oh, sorry. My apologies. I was trying to get home too quickly. Item 14, community governance review, which is the electoral arrangements committee. I asked Councillor Bullman.
I thought you were going to miss me for a minute. I was disturbed.
And you're right at the front.
Oh, well, I know. I usually sit at the back. It's a habit I've tried to culture long lost. Community governance review, actually, that gives it a rather grandiose title. I'm not sure it deserves such a grandiose title. Now, I can do two things. I can give you the potted version, which is nice and easy to understand, or I can read out the literal version that I've got here, which will be followed by a short test afterwards to make sure you listened carefully. Which would you like, the easy version or the potted or the straight?
Well, rather than put it to council, I suggest the short version.
Okay. Basically, what we're doing here is correcting an error. And what we've done is to try and put the error correct by making sure that the people who vote are actually voting in the right ward. This was an oversight going back to, I think, to 2013. Is that right, Linda? Yes, so none of us here to blame, of course. So we'll gloss over that quite quickly. The members concerned, I think, are quite happy about these changes. We are assured that had these changes been in place at the right time, that it wouldn't have affected the outcome of the elections. So I ask you, therefore, to endorse this recommendation, which then goes to the Boundaries Commission, which will then decide whether or not we're able to make these changes to the wards to ensure people vote in the right ward.
Do you have a seconder for that? Councillor Morrell?
No questions?
Sorry?
No questions?
Do you have any questions? No?
But
I'm
I'm sure you can,
I'm so,
but don't bother.
can we have a show of hands in favour of that, please? Thank you much indeed. That's unanimous. Right, now we move on to what I thought we were doing 2 seconds ago. Report of the monitoring officer. Leader, please.
Thank you, Chairman. There's only one item on the monitoring officer report to come to council, and that is on the recommendation is on page 78, and that's that council grants a further dispensation to Councillor Harrison from attending meetings of the council and committees on which he serves until the end of April 2023, which I'm happy to support while he goes through his recovery, and recommend to council that we take that action in that way. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, just a show of hands in favour of that. That's unanimous. Thank you. Right, questions from members. We have. Sorry. Because Linda's new, we thought we'd just keep her on her toes. Sorry, reports from member outside organisations, which we've got. I think 4 reports in front of us for noting, and I'd like to thank those councillors for the full reports that they do, and for the work they do for the council on these outside bodies. Thank you very much indeed. No, Linda, we'll move on. Good. Questions for members. Right, to consider the following questions. Councillor Laming.
Thank you, Chairman. CPRE, the Countryside Charity, published a report in July 2022. It was entitled Building on Our Food Security, and emphasises that we are losing our best and most versatile agricultural land to housing development, despite the fact that this land is theoretically protected by national planning policy. Does this council recognise the need to retain BMV grades 1, 2 and 3A land?
Can I ask Councillor Weinmark to respond to that, please?
Sorry. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for the question, Councillor Laming. The very simple answer is yes. The council does recognise the need to retain the best and most valuable grade 1, 2 and 3A land. I'll give you a bit more on that, obviously, but the government policy and legislation seeks to protect the best and most versatile agricultural land from significant, inappropriate or unsustainable development proposals, and to protect all soils by managing in a sustainable way. Specifically, the National Planning Policy Framework, the NPPF, states, this is a quote, planning policies and decisions should contribute to and enhance the natural and local environment by, amongst other things, recognising the economic and other benefits of the best and most versatile agricultural land. I have got a much longer answer if you wish me to give it, but that's the essence of it, that yes, we do. Thank you.
Thank you. I have just one supplementary question. So since 2010, there has been no systematic monitoring in the UK to show what is actually happening to this high-grade agricultural land. So would Broadland be willing to introduce a system to actually identify and track land use patterns in its district?
Thank you. I would suggest that we probably already do that. I'm looking at the director at the back, but I mean, I don't know if we actually have a list of all that, but we don't. Obviously, I'm getting shaking heads there. But if we don't, it's something we could look at.
Thank you. Okay. question from Councillor Roper. Councillor Roper isn't here tonight, but I understand Councillor Holland is going to ask the questions. Sorry, was that?
No,
Have I
think
got
it was
wrong
Council-
information? Sorry.
Councillor Catchpole is going to be answering the first one, asking the first one, I believe.
Okay, Councillor Catchpole. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Leader, for an update on the county deal situation. And given that you have already provided that, I'd like to amend the question just to say, how confident are you that the district councils will be retained?
Thank you. Leader.
Okay, thank you for your updated and amended question. As I said before, that there's a process that we are going through, and I was a little bit surprised that the question itself, as was originally set out, came from a county councillor when the county councillor are leading on this rather than the districts. Although what I would say is that I was rather that wasn't the position. But as I said, that position was reinforced yesterday with the meeting with the minister. And I think almost your answer is in the minister's response that I shared with you earlier, in that the minister is quite clearly stating that this isn't local government reorganisation by the back door, and that the district powers will not be taken up into county. They will remain where they are within the district at this point in time. So from the reassurance I've received, that I'm very confident that the districts will remain as the districts are at this point in time. I would just like to add, though, that as far as I'm concerned, the county deal as is being proposed to come forward is a deal that will be agreed between the county council and government, but I'm keen that that deal should be one that's seen to be worth it. And I mean that in terms of the investment in Norfolk. In short, the value of the deal over the time for Norfolk, and more directly, how this will impact Broadland. Secondly, and linked to my previous points in this, is that we are the decision-making structures, and how do we ensure that we continue to build on the strong partnerships that already exist across Norfolk. County deal or not, because it's not a done deal, as they say. The things that make Norfolk work is the strong relationships across the local government and the wider public sector. So I would expect our track record of working together on big projects or partnerships such as Greater Norwich, the shared community infrastructure levy, the Cambridge Norwich Tech Corridor, the public sector leaderboard, will all build and become stronger and keep going. I will, going forward, ensure that council is informed of changes and progress that is or isn't made on the deal. But what I would stress is, as I said before, the county deals are negotiated between the county council and central government. And as yet, we've not seen a copy of that proposal or that draft agreement, as it's been embargoed from being shared with the districts up until the minister's letter came out this afternoon. So I'll stop there, Chairman.
Thank you. Okay. Do you have a supplementary?
Yes, please, Chair. So am I right in thinking that the investment zones will be, or zone for Norfolk will be potentially linked to this county deal? And if I am right in thinking that, and that the planning regulations will be simplified, shall we say, in these investment zones, are we likely to see a nuclear power station in Broadland?
Is that something you're proposing, to bring a nuclear power station forward? Okay. I'd be amazed if we had proposals come forward for a nuclear power station. Yes, we're part of the investment zones and bringing investment zones forward. But I'd like to just reiterate what I said before. There is a requirement for the planning authority, the local planning authority. So for Broadland, that is Broadland, will set the planning requirements of any investment zones that may come forward as part of this process. But it's all very new and very fast. So all I can do is just keep you updated as we move forward. But I don't expect to see a nuclear power station anytime soon.
Thank you. I understand the leader is searching Amazon for crystal ball, but he's not found one yet. If who would like to ask the other question? Oh, sorry, Renee, on to Councillor Holland's question.
That was Councillor Beadle will be answering.
And Councillor Beadle.
The wonders of modern technology, Chairman. Chairman, the members of staff and elected members were recently informed of the completion of purchase of the Horizon building and impending movement of staff to Thorpe Lodge via a YouTube video. Can I say I did start to watch that YouTube video by the MD, and unfortunately the MD at home pulled rank, so I didn't finish it. Do you consider that this is the best way to communicate important changes within the council?
Okay, so thank you for your question. And I think as far as communicating, we try and use as many different channels and promote things in different way and try different things. In terms of the purchase of the Horizon Centre, it's really good news that we've completed on the purchase, and that will enable us to bring together the one team. It will significantly reduce our running costs and take further steps to reduce our carbon footprint, which are all good news stories. In terms of the way this was communicated, members took decision to purchase this building following a very comprehensive process, and those that are in the room that were part of that, I thank you for doing that. Having agreed the purchase, that the council went through that, we were kept up to date via regular member bulletins on progress towards the purchase. We were then informed by a video clip that was prompted for us to go and look at by an email that was sent to all staff and all members at the same point in time, that the purchase had been completed, which was then also followed up with the usual regular members bulletin. In terms of the question on the use of the video clip, it's not really that new. The MD normally uses video clips to round up to all staff on the changes and activities that are ongoing. And this has been seen to work very well, hence the reason it was used in this instance. It was the MD's decision to extend this to members. And actually, from my point of view, I feel it worked. We need to be open to different ways of communication, and the purpose of which must be to deliver a clear message in a timely fashion that's easily understood. And again, as far as I'm concerned, the video hit the mark on all of the above. I look forward to us continuing to explore different ways of communicating and see podcasts and video clips as an important part of our approach. Thank you, Chairman.
Do you have a supplementary, Councillor Beadle?
Yeah, yes, thank you, Chair. Can I say we note the lack of detail on the fact sheet of what is required? Can members be reassured that members and officers will be consulted on the layout and functionality of any conversions, and the fact sheet includes savings of joint working, not just from the move? Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I believe Council has already taken steps to ensure those things are happening. Decisions certainly have been made in relation to those things. Delegations have been given and those processes are being followed. So yes is the quick answer to all of those things. Those will move forward in the appropriate way, and members will be informed of those things again in the appropriate way.
Chairman, no, only I'm sorry I was outranked by MD Homefleet, but I'll try harder next time. Thank you, Councillor Beadle.
Not too hard, I hope.
Okay, moving on. Councillor Holland.
Thank you. At a recent meeting of Overview and Scrutiny, members of the committee were presented with a report regarding the purchase and restructuring plans for the Horizon building. During that meeting, when in closed session under exempt papers, the Director of Resources stated that the price paid for the building was subject to a non-disclosure agreement and that this included councillors who could not be told. What legislation is the administration relying on to exclude elected members from information about the spending of residents' taxes? And perhaps given the recent release, I probably should have said, was the administration relying on?
Okay, thank you for your question. And I think you should be, if you weren't already aware, that we did sign a confidentiality agreement, and that is legally binding, and also under the Broadland Constitution in Part 4, members' access to information and council documents in section 4.4, it states that members do not have the right to documents information in relation to contract negotiations, which at that point in time is where we were. Obviously, we've moved on now and have subsequently completed, so therefore the information is no longer bound by the NDA, and we are able to now share that as we have done so. I would also just like to just perhaps pick up the last point of the question there, in that elected members are not excluded from the decision-making process. Members clearly set the price envelope for the Horizon building. They agreed the budgets for the work that will be coming up. These are all held in the exempt papers, and off the top of my head, I think that's in Appendix P, if my memory serves me right, but that's there, and you've all seen that, and you've all been part of bringing that together, and that has been agreed by the full council. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Do you have a supplementary?
Well, yes, I do. And I also have a slight point in that 4.4 actually does lay out as expressed, but I think you'll find 4.5 does point out that there is a stronger common law right for members to understand how money is spent. So that is a slight correction on that point. And also, I would have to say, frankly, I am slightly aghast because we never received a direct reply to any of our questions. And, you know, as far as I'm aware, the purchase had already gone through when we asked that question in exempt papers. I can't understand why we weren't told. So that's really is a question. What date did the purchase actually go through, if that's the case?
Okay, without checking the dates, I don't know off the top of my head. I would believe, and my belief is that the overview and scrutiny meeting on that Tuesday was prior to the purchase being completed. And I'm trying to remember the date. I believe it was the 20th of September. And if you remember, the Eastern Daily Press ran a press article on the 23rd of September saying that we'd failed to complete our purchase of the building, which was true at that point in time, even though we had told the EDP that the purchase was imminent. In fact, it was the following day, I believe, that the purchase was actually completed on the 24th of September. But if I've got any of those dates wrong, I will obviously correct them at some later point. But I believe that's roughly where, or the time sequence. The other element that you have to be aware of is that within the non-disclosure agreement, there is an element in there that relates to the other party having to give us the permission to share the information more widely. And obviously that clarity had to be sought, and that permission had to be sought to enable us to do that. That was done subsequent to the purchase being completed. and the information has subsequently been released at its earliest point, which actually was yesterday. And that's where we stand. Thank you, Councillor Leggett. I was doing that off the top of my head, but yes, thank you.
Could I ask that those are actually clarified in writing, please? Because that explanation was not given to us at the meeting.
You have had your supplementary question. Okay, if we can move on to item 18, motions, and there's a proposal of a motion by Councillor Leggett and Councillor Mancini Board. I'll ask Councillor Leggett to move the motion, please.
Before I actually move the motion, I'd just like to add some detail of background, which I'm sure most of you know. Our current environmental strategy says we wish to achieve net zero well ahead of the government target of 2050. We are now in a position to set a realistic target for achieving this of 2030. That is because we've measured and published our carbon footprint for the past 3 years. And looking at the 2021 report, with just 2 actions, HVO fuel for our waste vehicles and moving to the Horizon building, these 2 actions will lead to an 87% reduction in our emissions. So we've made gigantic steps to reduce our carbon footprint. 1 or 2 other things we've done, we've measured our tree canopy, which is at 19%, which is quite a good level. But also we have provided a tree grant for community groups. We have continued to promote the Solar Together project, and this year we've offered some interest-free green loans to those residents who are taking part. We know what we have to do, and that is reflected in our Environment Excellence Strategy. The refresh of that, which will be coming to, as I think I've said before, this evening, the Environment Excellence Panel on the 20th of October, and then making its way through Cabinet at the end of November. And so with this, residents will be able to see the actions that the Council plans to take and to which the residents can hold us to account. So it gives me great pleasure to propose that Broadland District Council recognises the need to take action to combat the effects of climate change. The Council has a track record for putting environmental concerns at the heart of delivery and has made great progress both understanding and reducing its carbon emissions. Therefore, I propose Broadland District Council agrees to adopt an organisational 2030 target for achieving net zero carbon emissions.
Thank you. Councillor Mancini Board has seconded. Do you wish to speak now or reserve the right?
I'd like to reserve the right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'll open it to debate and discussion. Councillor Davis.
Thank you very much for the motion. We certainly support the target of reducing the estate emissions by 2030, but I think we're a bit concerned about what could have been achieved in terms of Broadland as a whole. I think this council has oversight of planning, as we've just been discussing, and planning has a huge impact on carbon emissions across Broadland as a whole. I think our certainly feeling is that taking into account the large amount of house building that's been going on, that measures could have been taken from a planning point of view to ensure that those houses being built were certainly much more energy efficient and of a higher quality, it should be said, to be able to achieve quite significant carbon reductions across Broadland as a whole. And so what we're suggesting is a slight amendment to the motion to recognise that, yes, it's a good target to go for in terms of the estate, But as Councillor Leggett has said, we want to be ahead of the government target of reducing carbon emissions by 2050. I suggest not only in terms of the estate, but across Broadland as a whole. And that actually we have measures and actions that we can take to achieve that. So I'm suggesting an amendment. Can I read out the amendment?
By all means.
So the amendment, amendment to the motion goes, Broadland District Council recognises the need to take action to combat the effects of climate change. Therefore, Broadland District Council agrees to adopt an organisational 2030 target for achieving net zero carbon emissions and across Broadland as a whole in panel and committee deliberations. I'm saying in panel and committee, that's the motion. So that's the amendment, sorry. Would you like?
Have you got it written down?
Zero emissions of any decision that they make. So planning.
Excellent.
What can we do with planning? Policy for.
So we go.
Yeah. Frameworks. NPP.
Yeah.
We talk to yeah.
So this is completely changes all this, replacing that totally, isn't it?
I think you need to stay.
I believe you need a seconder.
I do. Yep. I was just going to read that. Oh, if I have a second, I was going to read that out again and then call for a seconder. But if you have, I'll just read that again. Broadland District Council recognises the need to take action to combat the effects of climate change. Therefore, Broadland District agrees to adopt an organisational 2030 target for achieving net zero carbon emissions and across Broadland as a whole in panel and committee deliberations. Okay. A seconder, Councillor Lehman. I mean, if you accept the amendment, we don't need to vote on it and discuss it.
Chairman, you're right to go.
I have to get it first and seconded first. And it's been so we can open the debate on the amendment unless the proposer wishes to accept that as an amendment. We have.
Sorry, I didn't hear that. No, I don't accept the amendment. Okay. I believe we should put our own house in order first.
Councillor.
Yes, sorry, you're looking at me without saying my name. Sorry, I apologise. I'd like to. I think the amendment is very valuable. I'm very glad to see this initiative that resonates with previous motions, at least two of them, and it's fabulous that this third one has come through. And I appreciate greatly the amendment because as I understand, we're developing our code of our design code for buildings, and I think it's very important that a net zero carbon emission focus is influenced and brought into the discussions and development of that design code, and that will affect planning and developments going forward, and this amendment seeks to support that. And I think to delay, it doesn't stop the prioritization of our own organizational house in order, but it ensures that we have a leadership we take seriously a leadership role in this matter, which we've been trying to get some traction on for the whole, for several years actually. So I do support the amendment. It's a small amendment, but actually it directly influences our decisions and our deliberations that we can influence. So, and I think it sends a good signal. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Peck, and then Councillor Lemming, and then Councillor Beadle, and then Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say that I think it's a pointless amendment because we do not have control over delivering it. Yeah, we can have control over our own supply network, possibly by encouraging them to be net zero. We can encourage people that we deal with and organisations we deal with, but how can we make the whole council, the whole of the county net zero when we don't have influence on businesses that are outside, we don't deal with, we have no control of them? That is a government responsibility. If they want everybody to be net zero by 2050, they have to persuade all those companies that that's what they've got to deliver. We don't have that power, and so to put this amendment in is totally meaningless. How can we deliver it? So I would be opposed to it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Lamy.
Thank you, Chairman. Until now, this council has been slower than many others to publicly declare a need to address climate issues. So progress has only been made in relative terms because the council was working from such a low base. Very little had been done before 2020. The plan to adopt an organisational target is just a first step, and it's actually very late in coming. An awful lot more needs to be done and should have already been done in order to enable Broadland to be ready to face the looming climate crisis. So the council needs to not only make its operations net zero, but needs to lead and guide on making the whole district net zero by retaining local control of planning, rejecting investment zones, insisting that existing protections for the environment and nature are fully enforced, promoting the insulation of our homes and workplaces and use of clean, cheaper, renewable energy, putting in place systems that promote active travel, promoting local business and the production of healthy local food, and most importantly, I think, asking central government for much more investment and funding. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Beadle.
Thank you, Chair. On balance, can I say I support this amendment? And the reasons are that there are a lot of things this authority can do. There's a lot it can't do. And for instance, it cannot insist that enhanced insulation standards are built into development proposals, but it can actually change its policies so that they are included in the guidance for developers, and these should be enhanced. They're already there to some extent, but they should be enhanced. And the other things which Councillor Peck has said, this is not what the amendment says, so he's misinterpreted that. So there are things where we actually look at the background to what this council does in various areas like grants and housing, as well as planning policies, and we put it in the background so that when applications are put in, they actually take this into account. Thank you, Chair.
I've got Councillor Riley, then Councillor Vincent, Councillor Sean Vincent.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's actually picking up on a similar point to to Stuart. We all know, particularly those that have been on planning and taken an active part in planning committee for years, that the NPF, National Planning Policy Framework guidance and policies can't be overrode by neighbourhood plans or indeed their own local plan. So I don't believe that is what is intended with this motion at all, because clearly you can't do that. But I think it is about what you can do and get on with it. And on that basis, I would support it, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vincent.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm sorry, but I just can't support the changes. They are woolly and unclear as to what the outcome they're seeking to achieve. And on that basis, I do take umbrage with some of the things that have been said this evening in relation to this, in that Broadland has been very much a place leader in the environment and in driving for net zero. We are constrained, as Councillor Riley has clearly pointed out, by the MPPF and the national policy that associated with that. If that said in there that we had to impose net zero, then we would be imposing net zero, but we can't do it on our own in this way through our planning policy. That's not possible, but we do encourage it. As a district council, through our own housing arm being Broadland Growth, we have built homes that are way above the standard. We've built passive homes, and last year we even saw, through encouraged development within Broadland, the first passive plus house completed, and that is a huge step forward because that's the first one in Norfolk. So I'm disappointed that it's being positioned that Broadland is not leading the way, because we are. It also picked up around food and the fact that we're not doing enough to encourage sustainable food. Again, we brought in the food enterprise zone, we brought in the food enterprise park, we associated it with the LDO, we built our own food innovation centre, and on that park we are seeing come forward such things as the vertical farm, and all of those things are unique and brilliant for Broadland because it enables the local economy to grow. That particular vertical farm at this point in time, I believe, is the largest one in Europe, until they actually build a bigger one, which they have plans also to do within the same food enterprise park. So the words are a bit disappointing. Come back to what I originally said. I think the amendment is woolly, is unclear what it's trying to achieve, unlike what is being proposed in the original motion. So I think that we should stay with the original motion, so I won't be supporting the amendment. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Emsell.
We should always lead the way. That is something we've always said at Broadland. And we should support residents and businesses to do everything they can, but we shouldn't be responsible for them. That's going to be out of our control. Others are saying that we should do more. I think the Horizon building was us as a council doing as much as we can, and other members voted against that. So I would say that we are doing as much as we can, and I cannot support the amendment.
Councillor Gurney.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I've always felt that our policies here at Broadland are revised regularly and through our committee system, and I'm of the view that they contain and endorse good principles and values of environmental concerns. Therefore, I feel, and as a previous cabinet member for environment, at the time called waste and recycling, when we have and still have one of the highest recycling rates in all of the districts in Norfolk, I do feel that we are already way ahead in taking the necessary actions to adhere and to deliver these environmental policies within the restrictions we face. I can't support the amendment because I think it is just a repetition of what we already are doing. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Davis, do you wish to sum up?
Excuse me, Chair.
So, oh, sorry.
Mover of the original motion gets to speak.
No, we're doing the amendment first, aren't we?
Yeah, but the mover of the original motion gets to sum up before the mover of the amendment finally sums up.
No, because
No, I don't think so.
The amendment. Yes.
Yeah, though I know we're on
But we get rid of it, so we vote on the amendment.
If the amendment is moved, the mover of the original motion has the right to reply at the close of the debate on the amendment, and then you go to the.
Right.
Which section is that?
15.9, right of reply.
15.9.
alteration of a motion. The mover of the motion has a right to reply at the end of the debate immediately before it's put to the vote.
If the amendment is moved, the mover of the original motion has the right to reply at the close of the debate on the amendment. Surely that's voted wrong there. It should be the mover of the amendment.
Yeah, original, because if it's then lost, then then Judy will get a right of reply.
Yeah, but that'll be on a different motion. That'll be on the.
On the Okay, thank you, councillors. As per our constitution, it does state that the mover of the original motion can speak, and then it will be finally the mover of the amendment. So, Councillor Leggett.
Sorry, just for clarity, I can speak and then we'll vote on the amendment.
No, and then
No.
Councillor Davis speaks, and then we vote on the amendment.
Right, yeah. That's fine. All I will say is that I too am disappointed that some of the councillors do not understand what we have achieved. We have achieved a lot. And I doubt if there's another councillor probably in the land that's being able to reduce its emissions by 87% in such a short time span. So I'd like people to understand what we have achieved. And I also believe that this is putting our own house in order before we tell other people what to do. We can use our actions as examples to our residents and our communities for them to understand what they can do to reduce their own carbon emissions. So I do not support the amendment. I will also say that on our website, we have our draft environmental strategy delivery plan. And that does talk about other things than just ourselves. That's for another day. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Leggett. Councillor Davis.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. And thank you, Councillor Leggett, and especially in reference to the new environmental strategy, which is coming along and we're going to be discussing next week. And I think that's a real improvement on the original. And that's, I think, it reflects the discussions and deliberations within the committee. And that's what we're talking about here, is being able to discuss amongst ourselves in a collaborative way to find ways forward to improve what we're doing already. And if, as has been said by members here, that we are doing so well, then why not vote for this amendment? Because it's being a leader. And that's what we are. We're, or should be, as a district council, is leading the way. Yes, giving examples, but also encouraging, providing the guidance, and looking at the policies that we have to be able to ensure that we are moving as quickly as possible towards net zero, because we definitely need to do so, as we know from this summer. So I can't understand why we shouldn't vote for something that you feel we're already doing. So let's say this is what we're doing. This is our target, and we're being ambitious. So vote for the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we move to the vote, councillors? Those in favour of the amendment?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, Chairman.
And those against the amendment?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, Chairman.
Thank you. The amendment's lost. We're going to now go back to the substantive motion. Do we have other speakers, or can I ask Councillor Mancini-Boyle to sum up? Councillor Mancini-Boyle, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I have to say I'm really surprised to hear the words slow and Broadland District Council in the same sentence regarding the environment. As Councillor Lamming has said, we've never taken the approach of virtue signalling like many others by declaring a climate emergency, but not actually delivering on it. One classic example is one of our neighbouring district councils, which is Liberal Democrat led. Our results speak for themselves, and the work coming forward, such as the buildings we use, such as temporary accommodation and the Frettenham depot, we are delivering. As Judy has said, or Councillor Leggett, I very much doubt you will find another council that is doing as much as we are doing at Broadland District Council. And so I do not understand the need for the amendments. I think they're virtue signalling, quite frankly, and therefore I'm very, very happy to support Councillor Leggett's motion.
Thank you. Can we go to the vote then, please? Those in favour of the motion?
Twenty-four, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, Chairman.
Thank you. And those against?
Against. We must have some abstentions.
And those abstentions? Two.
Abstentions.
Thank you very much indeed. And I think that brings us to the end of the meeting. I will just say before you disappear, I've not closed the meeting yet. Before you disappear, I will remind members that we do have, I had a civic service on Sunday at the local Thorpe St Andrew Church, and I know some of you have responded already, and I welcome anyone else who would like to join us at that civic service and afterwards for a cup of tea and coffee and cake. And I look forward to seeing as many of you there as possible, and have a good journey home. Thank you.